Welcome to the world of Culture Pop with Steve Mason and Sue Kalinsky. Culture, comedy, movies, TV, tech, authors, trends, pop. This is the Culture Pop Podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. It is Saturday, March the 28th. Sue Kalinsky is not here today because of social distancing. That was the right thing to do. Chris Morales, our normal engineer, is not here today. Again, right thing to do. It's shelter in place. So we've kind of put together a Skype situation here. Juan, who is a technical whiz, I am not, has put together a whole Skype setup, and I think this is going to work. We've got a really great guest coming up for you. We are brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani. If you or somebody you know, wife, son, friend, is involved in any kind of accident, you want somebody with 24 years of experience on your side, that's Jacob Emrani. He was the first guy to start dealing with Uber and Lyft accidents. It is a proven fact that he has dealt with more Uber and Lyft accidents than anybody in the country. He is a pro. He's got a team of 50 people. So you're getting 50 people on your side. 24 hours a day, night or day, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB. 844-24-JACOB. Or remember the catchy jingle, which I will now attempt to sing. Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob. Not bad. All right, if you listen to me on Mason and Ireland on 710 ESPN, you know I have been telling everybody that the show to binge is Schitt's Creek. It is hilarious. It is good-hearted. It's a comedy from Eugene Levy and Dan Levy. Unbelievably funny cast. Catherine O'Hara, actually one of the actresses from the show, is joining me right now. She plays Jocelyn Schitt. It is Jennifer Robertson. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. We are maintaining a very safe distance from one another.
Yes, yes, we are. So how is Canada? I know how it is here in Los Angeles. How is Canada with the coronavirus?
Well, I think like everything, it's the same as you guys on a smaller scale. You know, I don't know. It's such a weird time, right? And then we're going to talk about a TV show. And while it seems silly at this time, I think people really need shows. Oh, who's that?
That's Sophie. That's my dog, Soph.
Sophie, hi. All my family and dogs are quarantined upstairs, but you never know when they'll come piling in. Yeah. It's my favorite thing. The thing that cheers me up most is watching clips of professional interviews and meetings with people's pets in them right now while everybody's isolating. It's
what would we do
cute.
Without our dogs?
I know.
What kind of dogs do you have?
We have two. We're a blended human and dog family. So my guy came with his beautiful Brittany Spaniel named Cooper, who looks like he needs to have his portrait painted at all times. And I brought in a Pug Chihuahua King Charles mix who looks like a George Lucas tiny alien that you'd find at a bar somewhere in a Star Wars movie. So we have this handsome one and the personality one.
Yeah, I've got a beagle named Sophie. She is 13. And I've got a little shelter terrier mix named Fredo. Yeah. All my pups are named after characters from movies. So Fredo's named, of course, from The Godfather.
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. Ours are. They're one of the great things that keep you going in these days. Kids aren't bad too.
Yeah. How many kids do you have? Going.
There's three girls, 9, 11, and 13. So we are sliding into the teen years.
And are you getting the full taste of that? How is it moving into the teens?
It's fine for now, I think. But I think when we are moved from 9, 11, and 13 to 11, 13, and 15, that'll get spicy.
I'm sure it will. So you mentioned silly TV shows. I work on ESPN, and I have been telling everybody, and by the way, I'm doing my radio show every day, 5 days a week from my house, from my kitchen table where I am right now. But I've been telling everybody Schitt's Creek is like the perfect show to binge. For you, what makes it so special?
I think a lot of what makes it special is that it's Canadian, and that the show has somehow found its place in the world, which is pretty exciting for a Canadian show to do that. And then obviously the world that Dan and Eugene created has just connected with so many people. And you don't know at the time you're making something special. You know, you don't know that it's going to be that important to people to show a small town. And instead of going towards the intentional small town full of judgment, you create a small town where everybody can just be who they are. How important that's going to end up being to people. So, yeah, it's been a super cool ride.
You said because it's Canadian. What's different about the fact, what makes it Canadian other than the geography and where you shoot it?
I think a bit of the sensibility of it. You know, we tend to, in Canada, kind of play, whether we feel it genuinely or not, play from a place of humility and from a small place of like, we don't want to, you know, bother anybody. Would you mind watching this? So to see, it's kind of like a small player making it in the big time, which feels pretty exciting.
Have you heard
Little League? I don't know sports. You know sports. Little League to the majors, I guess.
Have you heard this whole thing about everybody is either a Johnny or a Moira or a David or an Alexis? Have you heard this thing that goes around?
No. And I've heard most of the things, but is it like a personality test? I know I did an online personality test. Are you a Schitt or are you a Rose? And apparently I'm a Rose, not a Schitt, even though I'm Jocelyn Schitt.
Yeah, see, I'm a Rose.
What are you?
There's no question.
Okay.
And I'm probably kind of high maintenance. I'm probably a David.
Like you said, probably kind of high maintenance.
Yeah.
Which means you're definitely high maintenance.
Yeah, if I say I'm kind of probably, yeah, I guess I definitely am. You're right. So
you're David. Okay.
So you come from a comedy family. Tell me about your dad.
My dad, yes, was also a comedian. He was a political satirist. So have you heard of Rich Little, who did celebrity voices? Yeah. So my father, Bob, was sort of the Rich Little of Canada. So he was an impressionist and did celebrity voices. And then him and my stepmother had a show on CBC radio and then a show on CBC television where they did impressions. So it was kind of half of the family business. My mom is a child therapist. My brother ended up in construction, but sort of half of the family came from comedy and performing. My grandmother was a singer. So we have a bit of that gene in us, but they're all English, right? So we have that English comedy sensibility running very strongly.
What was your dad's best impression?
My favorite impression of him, you know, it was interesting because he started when I was really young, and so I didn't know a whole lot about politics as a kid, but he did a great Jean Chrétien, who was our prime minister for many years, and Jean has like a very distinct, heavy French-Canadian accent, so when my father wrote impressions of him, he would always use the incorrect words, which was very, very funny. Even to a kid.
My friend Frank Caliendo, who's a really, really good impressionist here in the States, he says his son is starting to pick up his impressions. Like his son is trying to do a John Gruden, who's a big football analyst here, and he's trying to do a good John Madden, and he's about 15 years old. Did you ever go through a period where you were trying to do your dad's impressions?
Oh, I ran for student council in grade 9 and decided I would pretend I was Ronald Reagan. for the the speeches in front of the grade 9 class. So absolutely. And I still do some fairly decent impressions myself. I don't know if it's in your genes or not, or it's behavior that you see it, but I definitely feel a strong inclination to do impressions all the time. Unfortunately, impressions of my family members as well, which are not always welcome.
Of course not. Which impression of your family is the least popular?
I would probably say my significant other. He's not a huge fan of I do an impression of him in front of a kid and they all start laughing. It's not. I mean, it gets the point across, though. If I'm trying to make a point, I always find, let's use the voice of the person we disagree with and show how ridiculous they seem. It's a tool. Is it fair? Probably not. Will I be in therapy soon? Probably yes. Anywho.
Were you, do you think you were born funny, or do you think it's genetic?
I think you're born funny. I think there's skills within that you can learn, but I think it's an ability that people have or don't. My mother does not have it. It's very interesting. She was a bit like Data from Star Trek, watching my dad do comedy. They divorced subsequently, but a bit of a like, why are we laughing? Why is this funny? I don't get it. So I do think it's in you. You
know, I grew up, we have Saturday Night Live, obviously, here in the U.S., and Saturday Night Live's been on for, 40 years or 45 years. When I was 110
years, I think it's on its 110th year.
When I was a kid, SCTV used to be on late at night on Friday nights, and I loved SCTV. There was something oddly subversive about it because it seemed it's from a different country. The characters were very, very different, and Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara were so brilliant on that show. Yeah. Did you grow up watching that show?
Absolutely. I think most Canadian children were raised on that for sure. Which is why it was such a huge deal and such an exciting time for me to find out I was going to be on the show. And then my very first scene on my very first day was with Catherine and Eugene. They didn't ease me in at all. They're just like, here you go. It's you and these two legends. Enjoy your first scene. I was terrified, but they're lovely human beings, and there's nothing to be afraid of when you're around them at all. They're so supportive, and watching the two of them work, it's one of the things when you're sitting on set, if you're not doing anything in that take, you just want to watch them and see how they do it. Catherine is the consummate professional. She's unbelievable.
Yeah, she is so funny on that show. I mean, the wigs. I mean, part of it is the hair, right? I mean, her wigs are ridiculous, and your hair. I mean, I'm guessing you don't wear your hair the way Jocelyn does.
It's not my hair. That's a fun fact. For season 1, it was my real hair, and then after that, it was wig because it was too hard. Kind of like Peg from Married with Children. It was just too hard to do that to my hair every time because you kind of have to wash it and then curl it and then flat iron the curls to make them look fried. So it actually unintentionally fried my hair. So it's a wig, which was the best because then I would just come into work and become Jocelyn. And it cut down my time in hair and makeup significantly. Because then I just have to, Dolly Parton, just put my hair on and go.
Do you think one of the reasons why the show resonates the way it is that there's a little resentment towards people who live like the Rose family used to live? And we get to see how rich people deal with living like the rest of us do. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the early days of the show, Eugene and Dan talked a lot about the Kardashians. And this idea, I think initially when they created it, was that of like, what would it be like if the Kardashians suddenly lost everything? How would they function? And so I think that was certainly an inspiration for the show. And and making those characters still likable. That's what's incredible about the show. You know, characters like Alexis, I would never want to spend any time with somebody like that, but somehow they managed to create a character that has layers to her that you find her quite likable.
They kind of point out the silliness of people like the Kardashians, right? There's a silliness at the very core of it.
Yes. Their world is ridiculous. And I think all those references that Catherine and Annie have about their former life are hysterical, and certainly point out, you know, Alexis has been locked in some drug lord's trunk in Ibiza, and, you know, all of her travel stories are absurd. And those people's lives are absurd. Have you seen the Kardashians' living room? They live in an all-white living room with 4 children. You're ridiculous. What are you doing?
Are the Kardashians popular in Canada? Do people watch them up there?
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, people also watch Kardashians up here. They're everywhere.
So I'm curious, what kind of difference has Netflix made for this show? Because I was able to stream the first 5 seasons just consecutively, and I raced through them in a very short period of time. Sometimes shows, like this happened with Breaking Bad, where Breaking Bad went on to Netflix, and all of a sudden everybody was watching it because you could stream it. What difference has Netflix made for the show?
It's obviously, like you said, made a huge, huge difference. We were kind of, you know, trucking along, and I think we were probably 3 seasons in before the first season. We might have even been 4. Dan would know more of the details of that, before we even were on Netflix, and that made a huge difference in terms of how many people saw the show, and it seemed like then the energy and excitement built after that. But, you know, people in Canada have been watching it since the beginning. People who watch pop in the States have been watching it, but Netflix obviously was a game changer.
So I haven't seen the...
Sophie agrees.
Sophie agrees. So I haven't seen the whole thing because we're still behind a little bit. I think there are 14 episodes in season 6. So I really don't want to know anything, but I have to assume that it's a happy ending. I
mean, can I can tell you it doesn't end like a Tarantino film, but other than that,
it's not Django Unchained.
It's not Django Unchained. But other than that, you know, we're getting into, we only got 2 episodes left. Our finale is April the 7th. And then we have a documentary after that airs right after that called Best Wishes, which is really fun. Dan's friend Amy, who's a great producer, she did some behind-the-scenes shooting for a bunch of seasons, and she did interviews with all of us, sort of talking about our journey shooting the show. So it's been 6 years. It's wild. It's wild.
Why is it stopping? Why are you ending the run?
It was Dan and Eugene's choice. They saw it as a certain length, and they saw the story being a certain ending at a certain point. And we knew after season 4, we went into season 5 and 6, that this was the plan all along. And, you know, Dan wanted to end it when he wanted to end it. And you kind of, at a certain point, have to give somebody artistic respect and go, cool. Don't let anybody pressure you if this is how you saw this wrapping up. And this is where you wanted it to end. This is where it ends. I know people are sad, and I'm in typical Canadian fashion. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it's ending. Sorry.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, I am too. I mean, especially right now. And you said it's just a silly show and it's just a comedy and all that stuff. Right now, that's what we need more than ever, is just a little silliness, a little levity, a little comedy right now. And the thing I love about the show more than anything is it's very, very funny, but it's also got such a good heart. And that's the other thing that I think makes it really special.
Yeah, we are very connected as a cast. the heart sort of carries on through into the lives of everybody. You know, when we wrapped the last season, we wrapped in June last year. A bunch of us all went on a big trip to Italy together to kind of, you know, celebrate that time that we had all had together and the closeness. I mean, we'll always be connected. We're on, you know, a million threads right now and text and everything with everyone from the show, and we will always be connected, everybody who was a part of it, for sure.
Has this
now I'm getting sad.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Has this opened doors for you, other projects?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. And that's the nice thing, is I think for everybody that was, you know, maybe on a different level than Catherine and Eugene and different people, it's opened up incredible opportunities for all of us. And you know, the show finished and I immediately went into the actor's spiral of, will I ever work again? And then started a new series 3 weeks later. So, you know, it's lovely. It's lovely to have that 6 years of working with those incredible people and the writers, and just watching a really collaborative comedy show happen. You know, there are some comedy shows that are not as collaborative and not as fun to work at, which is hard for people to believe, but some comedy shows are not fun on set, and this one certainly was a delight to go to work every day, put on those polyester clothes and that wig and get in there. Well, I didn't keep any of the wardrobe except for the cat sweatshirt.
Yeah, there you go.
All I kept.
There you go. Well, listen, it is really fun talking to you, and you're one of the delights of the show, Jocelyn Schitt. The show is Schitt's Creek. If you have not started watching it yet, it's fantastic because you can start season 1 on Netflix right now. And while everybody is quarantined, I can't think of a better way to get a few laughs and to get a few happy moments. Thank you so much for coming on, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Accident or injury, call Jacob and Ronnie. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mace. If you or a loved one is injured in any kind of accident, please don't wait. Call Jacob immediately for a free consultation. That's right, free. When an accident happens, it can turn your world upside down, so put the best on your side. Jacob doesn't even get paid unless you win. First name, first thought, first call, Jacob. After an accident, 24 hours a day, call 844-24-JACOB or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Jennifer Robertson, delightful. I don't often use the word, but delightful. If you have not seen Schitt's Creek and you are trapped in your house like the rest of us, it's a perfect show. It's great for the family. It's got a really good heart, and cannot recommend it more strongly. Thanks to Jennifer Robertson for joining me on the podcast today. Don't forget, the podcast brought to you by the law offices of Jacob M. Ronnie. That's it for this week. See you next week.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll see you next week for an all-new episode of Culture Pop.